Hello learners. So you have finally come to the last segment for this lecture number 54 on amicus curiae submission. And in this lecture we'll discuss about other disputes other than Methanex, where the question of amicus curiae submission was decided, and then we will conclude the lecture. So one case that is relevant is with regard to this question is Philip Morris versus Uruguay. Granted, this is not a case of environmental regulatory measure, but a case of public health regulatory measure, because in this case, Uruguay had taken certain anti-smoking measures, and that was challenged by Philip Morris. One of the measures that it challenged was the 80-20 packaging rule. 80% has to contain warning label, 20% can only be used for brand name, logo, and etc. So whatever, let's not go into the facts of this case. So in this case, many organizations came forward for making amicus curiae submission. One was World Health Organization, the other was FCTC's Secretariat, the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control Secretariat. So that also had made an amicus curiae submission, and Philip Morris Tribunal accepted the amicus curiae submission, and the reasoning that it gave was these two organizations have particular knowledge and expertise that was the subject matter of this particular dispute, and it was only prudent for the tribunal to accept the submission made by these two organizations. So that was accepted. At a later point in time, then another organization submitted an amicus curiae application under again Article 37(2) of fixed arbitration rules, right? So here that organization was Pan American Health Organization that also supported Uruguay's measure, and the tribunal accepted the amicus curiae submission of PHO as well, Pan American Health Organization. And then we see another application was made by Awas Foundation, and Awas Foundation stated that because of its unique members, that it makes it a suitable, suitable applicant under Article 37(2) of fixed arbitration rules. But the tribunal rejected this, saying that the unique composition is not anyway going to add to a particular knowledge about this particular facts of the case, as well as this application was late because Awas Foundation made the application after the written pleadings were submitted by the parties. So on the ground of late submission, and the tribunal felt that it was not going to add to any particular knowledge on these two things, it rejected. The tribunal rejected to entertain this application. Then we see even later to Awas Foundation, one other organization, so this was Inter-American Association of Intellectual Property. So that had also invoked Article 37(2) of exit arbitration rules and wanted to apply for be an amicus curiae in this particular dispute. Tribunal rejected this application also. You might have guessed one of the grounds, which was late submission. The second ground on which the application was rejected was some of the board members of this organization were the counsel for Philip Morris, and also not just the board members, they were also members of thematic committees as well. So there apparently was a conflict of interest. So on this ground also, the application with regard to being an amicus curiae was rejected in Philip Morris versus Uruguay. So what we see here is, that some of the application we accepted, some of the application was rejected, and this was something that was clarified by Methanex Tribunal also. It stated that the relevancy of the amicus curiae submission will be looked at it. This is what corresponds to the WTO jurisprudence also, and US Shrimp also, and US lead and bismuth case also. This point was reiterated on. They look at the relevancy of amicus curiae submission. So another case where we could see the question of amicus curiae submission in the context of investment dispute is PACRIM versus El Salvador. This case involves an environmental measure, but we didn't discuss it in this course also because the argument was not an environmental measure, right? So there was a project in El Salvador, El Dorado project, right? So here in that context, there was Center for International Environmental Law, and they wanted to act as amicus curiae. The tribunal had accepted the amicus curiae application, but you would find both El Salvador and PACRIM, both of them stated that the amicus curiae should not be allowed to be present in the hearing as well. So it's interesting. So this sort of makes you wonder, why will a host state not want an amicus curiae in the tribunal to be not present during the hearings, and the case was not argued on environmental law principles, and there was clearly some environmental concerns, but it was mostly on one of the domestic laws of El Salvador, the mining law, particularly Article 37(2) of the mining law. So that is the reason why we also didn't discuss this case, but clearly in this case there was an environmental concern, a very big environmental concern present as well. But the action of El Salvador makes us question whether a host state accepting or rejecting, not supporting an amicus curiae application may be influenced by different factors. One may be the political backlash it will get if certain things are revealed with regard to the implementation or non-implementation of its domestic law that are there for protection of environment. But whatever be the reason, here El Salvador did not want amicus curiae to be present in the hearings as well. So generally what happens is, I mean, other than this case, generally what happens is amicus curiae submission, especially the one that are made for in support of environment, are in support of the host state itself, which had taken an environmental regulatory measure, right? So, and the who opposes it is generally the investor opposes the amicus curiae submissions, and all of that is how it happens. But in PACRIM versus El Salvador was little different, where El Salvador did not support the amicus curiae to be present in the hearing. Okay, so we've seen enough cases, Methanex, Philip Morris and PACRIM, all of these cases where now a settled jurisprudence is being developed with regard to the question of accepting amicus curiae submission. One is, it is up to the tribunal's discretion to accept amicus curiae submission, and secondly, the tribunal will take a decision on a case by case basis by giving certain emphasis to certain factors like the relevancy of the amicus curiae submission, and then it will sort of decide to what extent it will give weightage. As we discussed in the very first segment of this lecture, lecture number 54, it is actually, it is a good thing if the tribunal accepts amicus curiae submission, because the decision that the tribunal is going to give in a case in an investment dispute which involves a challenge to environmental measure, that will have significant bearing on domestic laws as well, how the domestic laws are framed or implemented at the domestic level. So because of these facts, what we conclude here is the tribunal should accept amicus curiae submission subject to certain conditions which already had come out in the jurisprudence, relevancy, there should not be any conflict of interest and all of that. Subject to that, it can accept amicus curiae submission. So with that, we will also conclude this lecture. So we will look at and this concludes our 11th week of the course also. From the next video onwards, we will be in the last week of the course, and we will discuss the final points with regard to how do we reconcile environmental principles within the field of international investment law. Thank you.